The man leaped high and saved the old man. He thought they had escaped danger successfully. Unexpectedly, a modified vintage car pulled up in a striking fashion. Two bald men got out and abducted the old man. The man resolutely drew his gun and fought back, but he was kicked to the ground by a girl with straight bangs. What's more, she crushed the man's girlfriend.
I do hope you're satisfied with our product.
I love you.
Then she drove off in the vintage car in a swaggering manner. Don't mistake the man for an ordinary human being, he is a replicant. Police officer, while investigating a case, he accidentally discovered that replicants are capable of reproduction, and the abducted old man is precisely the key to solving this mystery. Unfortunately, a replicant company hijacked the old man halfway. With no other choice, the man has to rescue the old man once again. In the future world, cloning technology has become highly advanced. The Tyrell Corporation has developed a type of replicant with incredible performance. Their strength and running speed far surpassed those of ordinary humans. They soon became the most low-maintenance labor force in human society. However, just a few years later, the Nexus 6 replicants produced by the Tyrell Corporation launched a rebellion in a distant space colony. This rebellion completely changed humans' attitude toward replicants. They were regarded as failed experiments and subjected to ruthless rejection. To make matters worse, this batch of replicants was born with a lifespan of only 4 years. Before long, they vanished from the world. In order to reverse the downward trend, the Tyrell Corporation launched the Nexus 8 replicants. This new generation of replicants was not only implanted with artificial memories, but also endowed with a natural lifespan identical to that of humans. This design made it easier for humans to control them. Humans thought that peaceful coexistence could finally be achieved. But the human supremacy movement suddenly broke out. Replicants were reduced to objects of bullying. At best, they were arbitrarily beaten and cursed. At worst, they were hanged on the streets and tortured to death. In this world, they can't even obtain the most basic dignity of being human. Until the year 2022, the replicants secretly plotted a large-scale power outage. They used electromagnetic pulse weapons to destroy all electronic devices of the Tyrell Corporation. Even the replicants' identity files were reduced to nothing in this disaster. From then on, no one could easily tell who was a replicant, except by the exclusive serial number engraved on the right eyeball. This finally gave them a chance to catch their breath. Just as humans and replicants maintained a delicate balance of coexistence, the occurrence of a bizarre incident once again made the relationship between the two sides tense and confrontational. Due to the discontinuation of Nexus 8 replicants, the Tyrell Corporation was on the verge of bankruptcy. At this moment, the Wallace Corporation suddenly rose to prominence. It acquired the remaining shares of the Tyrell Corporation and developed a new type of replicant that was more obedient to orders. From this day on, the older generation of replicants once again fell into a state of being hunted down, and the people who carried out this hunting mission were called Blade Runners. The protagonist K was a new generation Blade Runner. One day, he received a mission to eliminate an older generation replicant. Not long ago, this old replicant had committed multiple murders in Los Angeles to save his kind. In fact, he had lived in seclusion as a farmer for decades. If his identity had not been exposed in this incident, he might have spent the rest of his life in peace, but there were no ifs in reality, and Kay had no intention of letting him go. The clashing sound of metal equipment echoed in the dilapidated farmhouse. Although the old replicant fought back with all his strength, he was no match for Kay's precise tactical movements. He finally fell into a pool of blood when Kay removed the old replicant's eyeball and prepared to take it back to headquarters to report. His eyes inadvertently swept across the tree in front of the door. Beneath the tree, there was actually a small yellow flower placed there. The gray mist of Los Angeles shrouded the land all year round. This desolate area didn't have a single green plant within a radius of 100 miles. The appearance of this yellow flower was particularly eye-catching. Kay immediately scanned the surrounding area with a detection device and found a wooden box buried under the tree. He quickly reported the situation to his superior, and then returned to the headquarters. Humans imposed extremely strict control over the new generation Blade Runners. They had to undergo psychological calibration after each mission. This process was similar to the psychological tests conducted in earlier years. Its core purpose was to check whether the replicants had developed independent consciousness that deviated from their orders. Kay bought a virtual AI companion named Joy from the Wallace Corporation. Although she was just a projected image, she possessed thoughts and an appearance identical to those of a real human being.
Let's dance.
One day, Kay returned home and brought Joy a wireless transmitter. Previously, the controller that projected Joy was fixed in the living room, and her range of activities was limited to that area. With this transmitter, Kay could take Joy's projection with him wherever he went. just as the two were snuggling up to each other. For warmth in the rain, the superior suddenly sent a message ordering Kay to return to the headquarters immediately. It turned out that the staff had dug up a female skeleton from the wooden box. The test results showed that this woman had been buried here as early as 30 years ago. There were traces of a narrow birth canal beside her hip bones, leading to the speculation that she died of childbirth complications. But what shocked everyone was that a string of replicant-exclusive serial numbers was engraved on the woman's bones. This meant that the deceased was a replicant. The biggest flaw of replicants was their inability to reproduce. Once they found out that they possessed the ability of natural reproduction, a full-scale war between them and humans would be inevitable. So Kay's superior gave him an order. He must find the replicants' offspring and eliminate them, to prevent a war from breaking out. The only way was to completely erase all clues. With this in mind, Kay went to the information hub of the Wallace Corporation. His first priority was to find out exactly who the owner of the skeleton was. He was greeted by Love, Wallace's assistant. But the massive blackout of 2022 had destroyed most of the data. The only surviving record showed that the deceased was named Rachel. The file contained nothing but a record of a test conducted on her by Officer Deckard. And Deckard had once been a Blade Runner himself. In order to obtain more clues, Kay tracked down an old colleague who had worked with Deckard, but the colleague knew very little. 30 years ago, Deckard withdrew from the Blade Runner team, and now her life and death are unknown. At the same time, Wallace was hatching a grand plan. Humans currently only had 9 off-world colonies, and his goal was to conquer the entire universe. To fulfill this ambition, he needed a massive labor force. This was the very reason replicants existed, but artificial production alone could never meet the demand. It was said that before the Tyrell Corporation collapsed, it had developed technology that allowed replicants to reproduce naturally, and had even produced a child. Wallace immediately ordered Love to bring the child back at all costs. This was the key to realizing his ambition. A replicant named Marriott tracked down Kay. It was clear that her leader had learned of Kay's mission, and had specifically sent her to gather information. But Kay remained unmoved from start to finish. Even though Marriott was extremely forward, he didn't let slip a single piece of information. In the end, Kay went to the house of the old replicant he had eliminated at the beginning of the movie, hoping to find more clues related to Rachel. He accidentally noticed that a key on the piano was depressed, as if something was stuck under it. When he opened the inner side of the piano cover, he saw an iron box. Inside the box was a small sock, and a photo of Rachel holding a baby. This confirmed his suspicion that replicants could indeed reproduce naturally. Then Kay walked to the big tree in front of the door, and unbelievably found a string of numbers 61,021 carved into the base of the trunk. Like all other replicants, Kay had artificial memories implanted in his mind. When he was a child, Kay had a wooden horse toy. Other children tried to snatch it away from him. Helpless, Kay had to hide the wooden horse in an abandoned boiler. And the number carved on that wooden horse was exactly 61021. Why would scenes from his own memories appear here? After returning to the police station, Kay pored over all the newborn DNA records, trying to find any anomalies. He soon discovered 2 identical DNA sequences, belonging to a boy and a girl respectively. Under normal circumstances, it was impossible for 2 people to have identical DNA, so one of them must have been forged. He retrieved the background information of these 2 individuals, and found that both files originated from the Morrow orphanage. The girl had later died of a serious illness, while the boy's whereabouts were unknown. Could this missing boy be the replicant offspring they were looking for? To find out the truth, Kay prepared to head to the Morrow orphanage, but he was suddenly attacked by an unknown force on the way. The attackers shot down Kay's aircraft with an electric shock weapon. Then a group of armed men surrounded him completely. At this critical moment, countless missiles hit the attackers with pinpoint accuracy. It turned out that Love had deployed air support. Although his goal was different from Kay's, both of them wanted to find the child through Kay. With his aircraft destroyed, Kay had to continue to the orphanage on foot. On the surface, this orphanage was a place for sheltering children, but in reality, it treated the children as free labor. Kay stated his purpose, hoping to check the adoption records from 30 years ago. Although the massive blackout had destroyed electronic data, paper files had survived. The director retrieved all the files from that time. Unfortunately, all the records related to that boy had been torn to pieces. From the inexplicable attack halfway to the torn files, who exactly was secretly obstructing the investigation? Having found nothing, Kay was about to leave, but he suddenly froze when passing the boiler room. The scene here was exactly the same as the place where he used to play in his childhood memories. He relied on his memories to find the boiler, where he had hidden the wooden horse all those years ago. When he opened it, There was a wooden horse inside, with the number 61,021 carved on it. At this moment, Kay's entire perception of reality collapsed completely. How could the artificial memories implanted in his mind be real? Was he a human being or a replicant? Unable to answer these questions, he had to go to the Replicant Enhancement Center to find Anna, who was responsible for creating memories. Anna was a partner of the Wallace Corporation. She was the designer of all replicants' memories. However, Anna suffered from an immune system disorder. Since she was 8 years old, she had been confined to a sterile room. Kay asked her if all the memories she designed were fictional. Anna replied that memories were certainly made up. Using real memories was against the law. Kay didn't say anything more, but only asked Anna to help confirm whether the memories in his mind were real. Anna had a device that could read replicants' memories, but when she saw the scenes in Kay's memories, tears streamed down her face uncontrollably. It turned out that Kay's memories had really happened. Having gotten the answer, Kay fell into complete panic. Could the boy he had been searching for all along be himself? After returning to the headquarters, Kay's superior conducted a psychological calibration for him, but the test results this time were extremely deviant. Kay had to lie and say that he had eliminated Rachel's child, in accordance with the order. The reason for his emotional instability might be that it was the first time he had killed a naturally born human being. Kay's superior believed his words without any doubt. Blade Runners had always been known for their absolute obedience. He told Kay to go home and rest. As long as he could get back in shape within 48 hours, he could continue to carry out missions. After Kay returned home, Mariette, whom he had met once before, came to his door. When Joy saw Mariette, a bold idea came to her mind. For a long time, she had been accompanying Kay as a virtual projection. Now she wanted Kay to experience real companionship, so Joy synced her consciousness to Mariette's body, and spent a wonderful time with Kay. Early the next morning, Mariette took advantage of Kay's inattention, slipped a tracker into his pocket, and then left quickly. At this moment, Kay was in extreme danger. If he really was that replicant offspring, Wallace would never let him go. Joy wanted to flee with Kay, but she knew Wallace would access her data through the projection device, and Kay's whereabouts would be exposed then. The only way was to delete Joy from the console. Kay was firmly opposed at first. After destroying the console, Joy could only exist in the wireless transmitter. If the device malfunctioned, Joy would disappear completely, but Joy accepted it calmly. If she had to choose an ending, she would rather have a real death like an ordinary human girl. In the end, Kay went to the black market, hoping to find out the origin of the wooden horse he had found. After testing, the black market boss said, the radiation level on the surface of the wooden horse was extremely high. There was only one place that met this condition, but it had long been a desolate and uninhabited area. On the other side, Love also noticed Kay's abnormality. Joy's controller was a product of the Wallace Corporation. Once it was disassembled, Love would immediately know Kay's intention to escape. She rushed to her superior's office and questioned him about where he had hidden Kay.
You tiny thing.
But the superior said he had no idea. Furious, Love pulled out a dagger and killed her superior. At this moment, Kay had already arrived at that radiation zone. The place was full of ruins, with no traces of human habitation to be seen. He walked into an abandoned hotel and searched aimlessly. Unexpectedly, a dog suddenly darted out from not far away. This indicated that someone must be living here, but before Kay could react, a gun was pressed against the back of his neck. The person holding the gun was Deckard, the older generation Blade Runner he had been searching for so hard. Kay hastily explained that he had only come to verify some things, but Deckard didn't believe him. Thinking Kay had come to kill him, he immediately got into a scuffle with Kay. During the fight, Kay never struck a ruthless blow. Deckard also gradually sensed that something was wrong. It seemed that the other party really had no intention of killing him, so he took Kay back to his residence. Intending to have a proper talk, Kay asked Deckard why he had sent the child to the orphanage. Deckard sighed and explained, the person in charge of taking care of the child was being hunted down at that time. He didn't want the child to be involved in this dispute, so he had to hide the child first. Later, the massive blackout happened and all the data was destroyed. Even if he wanted to find the child, he had no way to start. While the two were talking, the alarm suddenly went off. It turned out that Wallace's pursuers had found them. They hurried to run toward the aircraft. They were about to escape successfully when a missile came straight at them. Both Kay and Deckard were knocked unconscious by the blast. Then several men got off the enemy spaceship and carried Deckard away. Kay struggled to rescue him, but as soon as he got up, he was knocked down by Love, who had just arrived. In the chaos, the wireless transmitter in Kay's pocket fell out. Joy's projection lit up instantly. Love stared at the projection for 2 seconds, and immediately understood what was going on. She grinned and then crushed the transmitter to pieces with one kick. Joy's image dissipated like shattered light spots. Kay reached out to grab her, but only touched the cold air. He was in great pain, but could only watch helplessly as Love and the others left with Deckard. When Kay woke up again, he found himself lying beside a campfire. It turned out that the tracker Mariette had slipped into his pocket earlier had worked. It was she who had brought her companions and rescued Kay. The next day, Mariette took Kay to meet their leader, and this leader was the one who had been obstructing Kay's investigation all along. The leader said that they must protect Rachel's child. To them, this child was not only a new life, but also the hope of all replicants. If replicants could reproduce naturally, they would be able to break free from human enslavement and truly take control of their own destiny. Now the leader was rallying their kind everywhere, planning to launch a revolution to liberate all replicants from human oppression. As Kay listened to the leader, he suddenly caught a key piece of information. When the leader mentioned Rachel's child, the pronoun used was the female her. Wasn't Rachel's child a boy? Only then did the leader reveal the truth. The boy was just a decoy. Even if humans found him, it would not cause any substantial losses to them. Kay suddenly had an epiphany. It turned out that he had always thought he was that child, but he was just a decoy. Rachel's real daughter was Anna, who worked for Wallace and was in charge of creating memories. No wonder Anna had shed tears when she saw Kay's memories, because what had been implanted in Kay's mind were Anna's real childhood experiences. They had even forged a DNA record for Kay that was identical to Anna's, all to make this decoy look more authentic and draw all human attention to Kay. Meanwhile, at Wallace's headquarters, Deckard slowly woke up from his coma. Wallace's intention was crystal clear. He wanted to find that child, and use this as a breakthrough to fulfill his ambition of conquering the universe. To make Deckard talk, he had specially created a replicant who looked exactly like Rachel. Deckard stared at the Rachel in front of him, his heart filled with mixed emotions. It was his longing for Rachel that had kept him alive until now. But he also knew clearly that no matter how similar the person in front of him was, she wasn't the real Rachel. Seeing that this trick didn't work, Wallace's face darkened. He threatened to send Deckard to an off-world colony, adding that there were plenty of ways to make him talk there. That night, Kay saw an advertisement for the Wallace Corporation on the street.
You look lonely. I can fix that.
Only then did he realize that they were selling AIs as toys, completely ignoring the fact that AIs also possessed independent emotions. Kay thought of Joy, whose transmitter had been crushed by Love, and an idea suddenly came to him. He had to stop Wallace's conspiracy and prevent more people from suffering. At this moment, Love was escorting Deckard to the colony. Unexpectedly, the two escort aircraft were suddenly shot down. The spaceship Love was on was also affected, wobbling and making an emergency landing by the sea. When the smoke cleared, Kay's figure appeared not far away. He had come to rescue Deckard. But Kay didn't expect that the real crisis had only just begun. Love was not only Wallace's assistant, but also the most powerful among all replicants. The two engaged in a fierce fight. Kay was beaten black and blue, and collapsed to the ground, unable to get up again. Seeing that victory was certain, Love turned around and walked toward the spaceship, ready to carry Deckard away. Just as she was about to open the hatch, Kay suddenly climbed to his feet. He grabbed Love by the neck. He used all his strength to press Love into the nearby sea water. Within a few minutes, Love's hands and feet stopped moving. In the end, Kay summoned his last bit of strength and took Deckard to the Replicant Enhancement Center. Deckard's daughter Anna had long been waiting there, and the father and daughter were finally reunited. Meanwhile, Kay lay dying in the icy snow outside. At this moment, his heart was filled with an unprecedented sense of ease and freedom. This was the first time in his life that he had acted not according to others' orders, but followed his own heart, and it was from this moment that he truly had a life of his own. The film ends here. Kay in the movie is the epitome of countless wage earners in reality. As a replicant, his life script was written long ago, hunting his own kind at work, going home alone after work. Even his childhood memories were data implanted by the company. His superiors used him as a pawn, and humans saw him as a monster. He was like an emotionless cog in the workplace, repeating a mechanical life. But who would have thought that Joy, a virtual girlfriend, would become the light in his dark life? Even though he knew she was made of code, he was willing to buy her a physical projector, to take her to see real snow once. The most touching part of the movie is Kay's self-doubt. When he found out that he might be a naturally born replicant, the ecstasy of realizing he wasn't just a tool, was just like the excitement of ordinary people suddenly finding that they could also be valued. Unfortunately, it turned out that he wasn't the chosen one, just an ordinary nobody. This sense of loss, falling from the clouds to the bottom of the valley, was more painful than being beaten up. But Kay's story also tells us, what makes a person a human is never determined by their origin, but by who you are willing to give for and what you insist on. Whether you are a wage earner in the workplace or an ordinary person in life, if you have loved earnestly, fought hard, and struggled bravely, you are a unique human being. If you like my channel, please like and subscribe to it.